Hi, Lainey. Just going live here on Facebook. Oh, we're live. Cool. Okay. We are just waiting for Heather, who is the star of the show. And then we'll get started. And Lainey, feel free to participate and ask questions in the chat box. And so that way we can answer your questions about any legal concerns you have, or legal needs. I know that I still have so many questions. This is definitely an area that is not in my zone of genius, hence why I outsourced to Heather to review my coaching contracts, and she helped create the privacy policies for my website. There she is. Hi, Heather. I see your name. I just don't see your voice or hear you yet.
Okay.
Well, there we go. I hear you.
Okay, let me start my video. Let's see down here. There we go.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Baby girl's toys over there in the bins.
You have 2 children, correct?
That's right. I've got a little boy who's 5, and then my little girl just turned 11 months on Sunday.
Oh, wow.
I know.
You're busy being a lawyer, a legal coach, running your own business, and a mom of 2 and a wife. And is there any other roles that you do?
Those are the main ones. Yes, definitely the main ones are covered. How are you doing?
Doing well. I'm in Florida now. I'm back to United States for good, and I'll probably travel, just not the way I was before.
Got it. Yeah. But you look nice and vibrant and colorful. Pretty much the opposite of how I feel up here in Seattle. You know, my pale skin. I wanted to ask you, okay, so you can share screens, because I've got, if it's helpful, I can walk people through some slides that are, can help illustrate part of the conversation we'll be having. So
sure. Yeah.
Okay. So let me just pull that up so that I've got it in case people are visual and want to see that.
Okay. And let me know when you're ready, and I'll start recording and do an introduction.
Okay. Sounds good. Let me just get this open. Okay, I'm going to open both versions in case PowerPoint gets a little glitchy. I've got a PDF version as well.
And I have us live on Facebook too in my group that's all life coaches. So I'm going to be answering questions over there. And then we have Lainey that's on here now. And yeah, so I'll be just working both areas.
Perfect.
Work in the room. Yeah.
Sounds good. So I'm just going to close some things. I'm going to leave this Zoom. I know it's the web and now the program's open, but I'm still going to leave that up just in case. All right, let's see. So my PDF is open. Let me see if the PowerPoint will open. If it doesn't, that's okay. So what I might do then is just say hello, and then before I share screen, be able to, chat with people, talk a little bit before I move over to the share screen.
Okay.
Let's see, cancel these automatic update pop-up windows. Let's get those to go away. Okay, so let's see. That is not the one that needed to open. Sorry, give me just 1 second. The wrong version opened.
And just while we're waiting for the people who are live watching this right now, I just want to let you know that Heather, I guess you worked with Lewis Howes at one time, right? I don't know if you
Yep.
still work with them, but I don't know if you all know Lewis Howes. He's like one of my biggest role models and idols. He's a male life coach. He has an amazing podcast. And so you should check it out. But I just thought it was so cool that Heather worked with him. And I think he's such an inspiration.
Yeah, Lewis is a great guy, great client. I do some work for him off and on an ongoing basis. So he's he's a good guy to know for sure. Let me just get this open. Okay, I think this is all open. Alrighty. Let's over here. And then you just let me know whenever you're ready to get started, Krista. I'm happy to jump in, happy to chat, however you want to get going.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I just want to introduce you. So everyone, this is Heather Pearce Campbell, and she is an attorney, a legal coach, and I believe a business strategist as well, success strategist. And one of my friends connected me to her, Jennifer McNiven connected me to you. And the reason I started working with Heather is because I needed some legal help with my coaching business, which, we all need to make sure that we're legally protected and sound. And so Heather has reviewed my coaching contracts and helped me to set up my disclaimers and privacy policies on my website, and it's just been a huge help. And she's also coached me through some concerns as well. And as I'm sure a lot of us, or I'm going off how I feel, is when it comes to the legal stuff, it can be really scary and intense. And it's something that I put off for a long time. And I really like Heather's vibes, and she works with a lot of female online entrepreneurs. So I just think she's an incredible resource for new coaches that, need help and everything. So, so she is a mom to two, and she is located in Seattle. And let's see, what else can I say and has worked with my role model, Lewis Howes. And what can I say to introduce you?
Oh, well, that was a great introduction. Thank you, Krista. So, the long of it for me, the short version is I'm an attorney based here in Seattle. I had forgotten that Jen McNiven had introduced us, but I've been practicing law here for 16 years now. A handful of years ago, basically when I became a mom, I knew that because my little boy is 5, I have a 5-year-old boy and then 11-month-old baby girl. But when I was transitioning into motherhood, I just knew I needed to serve people differently. And based on my experience in law up to that point, which had been in real estate and business, there's a whole segment of people in business that are drastically underserved by the traditional legal market, right? And those are the people that I serve through my legal website, Warrior Business. And that is to say that people who are, usually they start out as solo entrepreneurs, right? Coaches, consultants, online educators, speakers, authors. Often the way people in this niche find themselves in business is kind of this circuitous, kind of sideways route. It's not like a traditional business where they set out saying, I've got a legal budget, here's what I need to do, putting their entire plan in place. Often people in this niche, in this space, end up in business because they acquire expertise, from a previous career, they develop a passion or an interest in something, and then, usually they're doing some work on the side before they go full in. It's just, and I saw this happening and saw that so many people were not being served in this space. And so for me, the legal website Warrior Business was a way to reach these people, help provide a lot of education up front, which is why I love having conversations like this with people, because my goal, and I actually just spoke at a legal conference on the East Coast to a bunch of attorneys and talk to them about the business of law. But my goal, including through conversations with other attorneys, is to what I call break the black box legal model. Our legal system is set up in a way that people generally don't get the information that they need in a timely fashion in the way that they need it until they've encountered some problems, right? And that's just, it's not a good thing for people in business, and it's not a good thing for people in this space who often have an online portion of their business that is subject to a whole host of rules and regulations and potential pitfalls. And there's a variety of other ways that people in the, what I call the information world, can get themselves in trouble. And so for me, what I love doing is providing that education up front, helping people understand how to make the right decision, so then they're ready to when the time is right in their own business. So that's kind of the, you know, the backstory about how this business came about and how I'm helping people in a different way with legal needs. So
I love that. Like, you are proactive instead of reactive.
Absolutely. And I believe so much that people make better decisions when they have the information that they need, you know. And I'm also, and I say it regularly, it may sound cheesy, but I really believe that the world is a better place when we all get to work doing work that we love, right? And whether that's working from our strengths, our passions, whatever. And so I love helping people be successful doing what they love. And a key component of that in modern day business is understanding the legal stuff and having that in place, because especially in the online world, I call it the Wild West of business. So many ways for things to happen that are not, you know, that can go wrong and really be detrimental to an information-based business.
Absolutely. Oh, and I just want to say one thing too is I love that your website is Legal Website Warrior, right? And I'll put that information here for people to contact you later. But I have a coaching program, and half of the women here that are watching are either in my current coaching program or getting ready to join the summer one, and we're also warriors. I just love that branding, that name. So.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I get that response frequently, which it was a fun process when I was picking my, you know, the brand name for my new business, but it came quickly, and I knew that it was the fit like as soon as I thought of it. You know, I was writing down some different ideas. So yeah, but it's fun to get that feedback. So today we had talked about going through, and tell me, Krista, remind me how much time we have today.
We have an hour, so we have 15 minutes left.
Okay, so why don't we plan to save some time at the end for questions? What I will try to do then is we will go through, I have a presentation that is called the 5-bucket framework, right? And this is a framework for helping people understand how to protect their business, where various protections kind of fit in the overall scheme of things, because I get a lot of questions around each of these buckets. So I think it might be helpful at this point to click over to my slides, if that works for you. And we can walk through the 5-bucket framework, and then I'll try to save 10 or 15 minutes at the end to handle some questions, if that works.
Do it. I'm ready.
Okay, so I am just going to turn on my timer so that I pay attention to time. Here we go. Okay, do that. All right, so let me figure out the share screen thing really quick. I'm going to start with the PowerPoint. Let's see if this will work. If there's too much of a delay or it's being weird, let me know, and then we can, and I'm going to go to slide view. We can change it up because I've got a PDF version of the same thing. Let me know once it's back up. I think it's just probably loading the first slide.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, technology. There we go. Okay, can you see the full slide?
It's cut off.
Is it? Okay, so let me escape out of that. Right now, do you see like the slides on the side as well as the main one?
Okay, there we go.
So I think I'm going to switch over to my PDF. I think that's going to be easier. Let me, just a second. I'm just worried that if, depending on how it shows up on your screen, that the PowerPoint may not cooperate. Let me try this one. Tell me if this one is any better from a visual standpoint, the PDF.
No, it's still a little cut off.
Is it? Darn it. I wish I could see what you were seeing. What can you tell?
Lainey said she can see the whole slide.
The whole slide? Okay.
Oh yeah, it looks like on the Facebook Live it's good too. I think it's maybe just because I have the chat box open. Yep, I think you're good.
Okay, got it. So you can see this. Okay.
Yep.
Great. I didn't want it to be chopped or weird. Okay, so 5 bucket framework, right? To protect what you build and to cover your ass as an online expert. And this, this again, and what I'd like to start off with, actually with any of my presentations, is before we even dig into the legal stuff, I always ask people, what is your why, right? So I joke, entrepreneurs are the rare breed that will work 80 hours a week to avoid working 40. And usually, and when I speak live in public, I always ask the business folks that I'm talking with, like, how many of you went into your current business because you thought it would be easy, right? I never have once had somebody raise their hand in response to that question. So people don't do it because they think it will be easy. You do it because you think it will be worth it, right? I mean, I know that's why I'm in business for myself, is because I believe that it's worth it. So, what is your why? Like, dig down and just remember, what is it that really drives you? What is it that triggered that decision to launch out on your own and be pretty adventurous, right, when it comes to doing your own thing? Because a lot of people are not willing to do that. That is what I protect, right? I believe so strongly in protecting our ability to show up and do what we love every day and create the life that we want, which is usually, very strongly related to our big why, right? So this is mine: freedom, family, adventure, influence, challenges, creativity, legacy, right? So you have your reasons. You have like the big why behind what you're doing. For me, a huge part of that is my family, being able to do something that allows me to be a mom, allows me to be in control of my time and where I work and who I work with. That's a huge part of it. So even in carving out my own career in law, I was never willing to go sit in a cubicle and do work that somebody else thought was important and that I should do. Here's my family of origin. I come from a big family. These are some of my traditional clients in the law, right? So I've worked on some massive projects. I've worked on a wide range of real estate and business stuff here around Seattle and around the state. These are clients of mine in the legal website warrior world, right? So again, my niche is coaches, consultants, online experts, online information businesses, speakers, authors, people who deal with information through their business. Okay, my mission, I'm fiercely committed to protecting world-changing entrepreneurs and small businesses, right? And a huge part of it is doing what I'm doing right now, is providing education up front, making legal protections easy to understand and easy to plug into your business, right? So over the years, I've always told my clients this: if you don't treat your business like a business, nobody else will. And this is what drives my mission, to help people understand that legal is an essential part of elevating your business, elevating your perceived professionalism. And the traditional legal model is broken, right? So many people know they need legal help and they don't get it. And often I hear this, right? I'll deal with it later. I haven't had any problems so far. I love my clients, right? All the reasons why legal isn't a priority. And so quickly, we're just going to very quickly run through a couple of statistics because I want people to understand what the reality is for the legal landscape, especially in the United States. So over 15 million lawsuits get filed on an annual basis in the US. 52% of those, of the civil ones, because there's both civil and criminal, 52% of the civil cases are against small businesses and small business owners. It's a massive chunk of the legal world. 60% of those cases are contracts-based claims, contracts cases, right? And the average contract case that gets filed against a small business and goes through litigation costs a small business owner $91,000. So I don't use these numbers to scare people because I actually am a huge proponent of doing business, including on a handshake, if that's, appropriate. But I do want people to understand from a numbers perspective what happens out there in the business world and the legal landscape. If a lawsuit gets filed, on average, it takes 21.6 months from the point of filing to the point of litigation to actually getting resolved in court. If it's settled before going to court, it takes an average of still 8.9, almost 9 months to resolve, 9 months of your life dealing with a scenario that's usually really unfortunate, right? And 2/3 of those, even if they don't go all the way to litigation, cost a small business over $10,000 to deal with and resolve. And over 60% of businesses, period, including small businesses, deal with one significant legal issue at least once a year. So those are just the numbers, right? As reported by United States courts. This is federal, state, all levels of courts in the U.S. Access to justice, right? This is a quick survey about small businesses, 29 million small businesses in the U.S. And the more significant number is the 19 million down below that, like I mentioned at the beginning, don't set out with a traditional legal budget to actually get help and get stuff set up the right way. And this is because of the way that our legal system works and doesn't serve people the way that it should. So, leading us to why I do what I do, and this particular presentation is helping people understand where all the solutions fit, right? How to approach protecting your business, how to approach understanding where each of these things fits, right? So these are the 5 buckets, and you'll see the 3 at the bottom: business structure, business contracts, business insurance. Those are kind of what I call the foundational buckets. And then you have these 2 up top, the IP protection plan, dispute resolution plan. We'll talk a little bit about those as well. So starting with business structure, if you were to imagine in your mind a platform, and each of these has their place, but when we're talking about the 3 bottom ones, the business structure is kind of like the very foundational platform. Business contracts, think of the business contracts as kind of the nuts and bolts of the daily goings on in your business. So I literally imagine a base platform, which is your business structure. Business contracts are like the gears and the mechanical pieces. Contracts as kind of the nuts and bolts. Little lag time.
Yeah, in the Facebook Live, keep going. You're doing great.
No worries. So business contracts are like the nuts and bolts. They should protect kind of the daily workings and goings on inside of your business. And then business insurance, and of the 3 foundational ones, business insurance, think of like a layer of padding kind of around the exterior of your business, right? So that's kind of how those three bottom ones fit. When it comes to business structure, understand that business structure is the essential first step. So also I'm going to point out that I think I gave you access to a downloadable visual, right? Did I send that to you in advance, Krista?
Yes. Yeah. And
So,
when people registered, they got access to that.
Okay. So these are the intended kind of bullet points that go in the little note-taking sections with each bucket, right? So these are kind of the main takeaways if people want to be taking notes. they can look at that visual, and this stuff is what fits in those spots. So I'll point out these slides when we get to them. But business structure, right? It's the essential first step for separating business liability from your personal assets. So a lot of people go along thinking like, oh, it's just little old me doing my business stuff, you know, not impacting a lot of people. You know, maybe they're in a relationship with a significant other or a spouse. Maybe they're not. But what they often don't understand is without a business structure, if they do take on liability through the work they do in their business, they're exposing any personal assets they have, meaning a home, bank accounts, I mean, even their wages if they have a regular day job. If they're married and they're in a community property state, they could be exposing the assets of their spouse. So a business structure tells the IRS, tells the courts, tells your clients, my business is over here, my personal life is over here, right? So that is the big takeaway for why a business structure is essential. From a mentality standpoint, this is kind of an interesting like after effect. People who decide to take the leap and set up a proper business structure, like the difference in success mentality is significant. It's the difference between kind of dipping your toe in the water, deciding that you're going to like play around with something or try something out versus full on commitment of I'm doing this. And so even from a mentality perspective, like actually making the commitment to go forward with setting up a proper business structure, really treating yourself like a business, has significant advantages, which is why I always encourage people, like at the earliest point in their journey possible, set up your business structure, right? Set up your LLC if that's appropriate for you, like get moving. And then finally, just from a logistical, you know, monetary perspective, business structures provide substantial tax advantages. So there's a saying that says, you know, businesses make money, individuals get taxed. And it's really true. Businesses, depending on what type of business you set up, you have access to certain parts of the tax code that allow you to expense a gazillion things that you don't get to expense as an individual or a sole proprietor, right? Which leads me into my next slide. And this, we'll just do a quick overview, but I want people to understand the different business structure options, right? So a sole proprietor, which is usually the way people start, means that they might set up. So some people say, well, I have a business. I registered a DBA with my state, right? Well, a DBA, which is like a doing business, DBA stands for doing business as, it's a trade name. That's not a business structure. That's not setting up a business. That's just letting the state know, like you're doing business under a certain trade name that they now need to associate with your individual tax ID, right? So a sole proprietor is technically a non-entity. It's an unincorporated business. There's no separation from a tax standpoint, from a legal standpoint, from, you know, any standpoint. There's no separation between your business and personal liability. So obviously, I discourage the idea of remaining a sole proprietor for long. A limited liability company, which is usually for a lot of people that I serve an appropriate fit. It's a very flexible structure, right? It was actually originated out of the 70s. It was a business structure that kind of combined the benefits of liability protection that a corporation has with the flexibility of a traditional partnership. So it was actually created to protect business partners from liability brought into the business by other business partners. That said, it's evolved. So there are plenty now, I mean, and they are likely more popular even than the partnership standpoint, single member LLCs, right? So tons of people set up a limited liability company as a single member. Benefit from the liability protection, which is to say that so long as they keep their corporate records up to date, so long as they really treat their business like a business, set up business bank accounts, you have the liability separation that a corporation structure, like a corporate structure, provides without the formality of all of the paperwork requirements, the quarterly filings, etc. So an LLC is a more flexible model. It has a flexible management structure, which you don't have if you set up a corporation. An LLC actually allows non-citizen members, and then it can be dissolved at any time, including upon death or bankruptcy. Those are mandatory. So an LLC is generally a great model for people in the information world space, depending on their goals. A C corporation, let's talk briefly about a C corp and an S corp, because it's important to understand these. A C corporation is the ideal structure if you are raising funds through outside investors or shareholders. They generally want to see the formalities that go along with setting up a C corp. A C corporation allows multiple classes of stock, so you can have different levels of investors. Shareholders must be U.S. citizens, and taxes are paid at the corporate level, with the chance that there might be double taxation if the corporation is paying dividends out as personal income. So that's kind of a disadvantage. And C corps can exist into perpetuity, which means they don't have to dissolve upon the death or bankruptcy of a shareholder. S corporation. So to be clear, S corporation is not an actual structure that you go set up. S corporation is a tax election status. So with an S corp, you would actually first set up an LLC or a C corp, and then make the S corp tax election status, which is just paperwork that you fill out and send to the IRS. But it essentially allows for flexible taxation, meaning that you have pass-through taxation, which, if you're a C corp, you wouldn't normally have pass-through taxation. You'd be taxed at the corporate level, right? So an S corporation allows you to make that election and have pass-through taxation so that you avoid double taxation. You are only able to have one class of stock, and it's limited to 100 shareholders if you've made the S corp election. And the shareholders must be U.S. citizens. And like the C corp, an S corp can also exist into perpetuity. So that's a very quick overview of the basic business structures that are available to people. Again, usually my recommendation is the LLC if people have not yet set up their business. Okay. So as a reminder, right, tax advantages increases your likelihood of success, and a business structure is the essential first step for separating liability from personal assets. Okay, so that's bucket number one. Bucket number two, business contracts. Again, these are the gears and nuts and bolts of your business, right? This is where I do a lot of my work, is in helping people get their business contracts in place. And essentially, so this is a Latin phrase, right? Verbo volant, scriptum manent, which means spoken words fly away, written words remain. And all this is to say that oftentimes, and I had to learn this actually really early on in law school, as much as we like to think that we have great memories, that we can verbally put something in place and remember it, sometime later, all of us are, prone to error. And in the context of business, that's particularly problematic because usually money's involved. And so that just makes things even more problematic, right? Which is why the safest route always for any exchange of value is to have a contract in place, right? So exchange of value, what does that mean? Anytime you are making an exchange where you're delivering something or providing value in exchange. So for example, and this could even be something as simple as putting up a website and sharing content through a website, right? Somebody comes to your website, there's an exchange that happens by you providing value, they are receiving it. Maybe you have lead magnets, opt-ins, etc., other things on your website, right? You don't want to be doing that without having terms in place. That you have exchanges of value, obviously, every time you're serving or working with a new client, right? They pay you money, you do certain work. If you're hiring people to work inside of your business, that's an exchange of value. If you're setting up potential business partnerships or other exchanges where even if you're not trading money, maybe you're both contributing information and creating something new. So business contracts, whatever you're doing in your business, you probably should have a business contract in place to cover that specific thing, because otherwise the potential for things to go wrong and for there to be a misunderstanding are pretty substantial. Not because humans intend to be that way, but just because it happens. The thing that is also fabulous about business contracts in the context of the information world are that they help protect your intellectual property from a contractual perspective, right? So even if you don't have copyright registrations, even if you don't have trademark registrations, like even if you don't have some of the things that people typically think of when they think about protecting intellectual property, from a contractual standpoint, you can have terms in place that when you sell your product or your program or your services, say to that specific person, you can't use this information in any way that's not permitted, or that, you can use it for personal reasons, but not for commercial reasons, right? So all of the ways that, I help people put contracts, in place are generally to help them protect their IP. At least as some part of that. And then finally, contracts also guide and protect business relationships. A lot of people feel uncomfortable putting contracts in place because they feel like it's like putting up a fence, between neighbors, but it's really not. I let people know, no, contracts are there to guide and protect relationships. Excuse me, I'm going to grab a cough drop real quick.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. And then we had a question too. So Lucan said, I am looking at contracts now. I am not sure where to start or how to craft a coaching contract. Hold on just one moment, Lucan. This happens to me all the time when I go live and you talk, and then your throat gets so scratchy and dry.
All right.
It's a real thing.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. Do you want me to repeat that question?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I stepped out of my room. What was the question?
So Lucan said, I am looking at contracts now. I am not sure where to start or how to craft a coaching contract.
Yeah, so that's a great question. There's a lot of ways to approach it. Obviously, through my business, that's one thing that I provide. There are templates that you can purchase online. I'll talk briefly to that point, though, because I get a lot of questions about places like LegalZoom and Rocket Lawyer and what I call the big box template providers. Part of the reason that I set up my business the way that I did, including bundles, documents, as well as education and training, is that there's a huge gap between what Rocket Lawyer and LegalZoom, what companies like that provide, or I say clear over here on the left-hand side of the market, versus what an attorney would draft up for you if you're paying everything like custom one-on-one work, right? Huge space in the middle of that. And so my goal actually through this business was to be a provider that provides solutions in that space. And to me, the solution, because a lot of people will say, well, I got a contract from my friend who's in a similar business, or I found this free one on the internet or whatever. That's all well and fine. But from my standpoint, what is even, I think, more important, I mean, the contract obviously is very important, but having a certain amount of working knowledge and education that goes along with the contract. So Krista, for example, when we work together, like a huge part of what I care about doing is walking people through specific things related to the contracts, related to how they use them, related to the way that, they benefit that particular business. And so all of this is to say is that, be very cautious depending on where you get either your contract or templates from, because there is a difference in what is out there. And, grabbing free forms off the internet, depending on what you're looking at. There's really no way for me to say, well, that works or doesn't work unless I put eyeballs on it, right? Mm-hmm. But knowing this industry very well, I've created a set of documents that are essentially pre-tailored to people in this niche based on generally the way that people work in this space. So you've got some options. There are other people, not going to say like me, but other people doing similar things out there. Be happy to answer some additional questions via email on that point, but just be careful. Obviously, if people can have documents customized to their own business, that's always the best route, right? Fit for you, tailored for you. If you can't do that, just spend some time researching where you're getting your documents from.
So on the International Coaching Federation website, which I'm getting ready to be certified through, they have a sample coaching contract there. And I think that's where I got my original one. And then I had you review it and you revised it and made it fit to my business. But do you think like that would be an okay place to like start from there and then have someone like you or, an attorney like look over it?
Well, absolutely. And I'm also a believer that, you don't necessarily need to fix what's not broken. So I'm always willing to look at people's existing contracts, especially if they've already been in business using a certain contract or doing something a certain way. They've got their routines established, right? Because I want tools to be a real fit for the way that people are already working. Some things might have to be adjusted, but certainly if you've gone through a training program and they're providing you with a contract, again, without putting eyeballs on it, I can't speak to because I say that, and yet I've seen some really crummy contracts out there. But, I would assume a place like that would give a pretty solid starting point. So yes, I would say, at the very least, take something like that. And also understand that contracts are meant to be living, breathing documents, meaning that just because they came a certain way doesn't mean that that is a great fit for you. Like, use your own instincts and your own judgment to determine both what you want from the client experience side as well as what works for your business, right? Because there could be standard language around the way, for example, that your coaching services are delivered that just really doesn't fit for the way that you like to coach or the way that you like to do things. So, be aware that certain legalese you might want to be careful about changing certain provisions, for example, like governing law provisions or dispute resolution, stuff that has to do with the way the contract's going to be interpreted. But when it comes to whether something fits the way that you do business, right, understand, like, you should feel free to change that, because a contract is only as good as it is accurate, meaning that it fits the scenario for which you're using it, right? So it doesn't do anybody any good to have a contract that's written a certain way and doesn't match the actual way that you're doing business, if that makes sense. And I see that all the time as well, and that's problematic. Does that help?
Yeah, and then Lucan said, what are the most important areas to cover in a contract? I know of IP protections, but I am not sure what other protections are common or essential when it comes to coaching people.
Yeah, so in regards to coaching, that's a great question. Depending on if you're doing like one-on-one work versus group work, right, there'd be clauses that you would want to have in a group contract that you may not include in a one-on-one contract. So for example, with group work, depending on the way that you deliver that work. So for example, if people have the opportunity to be interacting online or even in person, that brings in a bit of liability that you don't have if you're just serving people one-on-one. So you would want to have a clause in there that allows you, it's essentially like the right of removal, like to remove somebody from a group if they are, engaging in behaviors that are really disruptive or problematic in a group context. And I have seen that, by the way. I've had coaches that I've worked with that have had to remove people because they, and just understand this as well. I mean, something like 3% of the population, right, have personality disorders or whatever. Like, business is also just a numbers game, meaning that even no matter how hard you try to always like properly vet people, right? There are just sometimes people that are going to end up inside of your business or inside of your services that are difficult personalities, and that's just how they are. And they may not be a great fit for your services or your business, and they could totally cause problems. And so you can't draft for every scenario, but you can, I think, watch for a lot of the main ones. And so a right of removal is important, based on problematic behavior or disruptive behavior to a group. Also in the context of like providing online forums associated with a group, right? Having kind of a code of conduct, having certain rules about the way that people are going to be communicating and that they're going to be respectful. It's kind of a similar, along a similar vein. For individual clients, yes, and in both types of contracts, you're going to want to make sure that you properly cover your intellectual property, that you decide, for example, whether it's subject to a non-disclosure agreement or whether you just have a clause that says this is for personal use only, won't be used for any commercial purposes or shared outside of this relationship, right? So there's various ways to approach protecting your IP. What else? You always, for people that are doing work around the world, right, internationally and interstate work, you always want to make sure that if there is a dispute, you have both a dispute resolution clause that describes how you're going to resolve disputes, as well as a governing law clause, which says where parties agree to jurisdiction to have any disputes resolved, right? So if you're based in Kansas, you probably want to have it say Kansas. If you're based in California, just make sure, because I've also worked with plenty of people that snagged a contract somewhere, and then they have a dispute resolution or a governing law clause that like sends them to the other side of the United States to get something resolved just because they didn't read it. So don't do that. And then just make sure, one of the things that I think, I've seen that's also problematic in a lot of contracts is not enough specificity around the deliverables, around how something's delivered, what the obligations of both parties are, right? With any contract, you essentially want to cover the who, what, where, why, how, right? All the things that say what's trading hands, how's it being delivered, where, on what timeline, is there a specific term, and if payments trading hands, like not only saying the amount of the payment, but, on what dates are the payments taking place? How is payment being delivered? Does it get mailed, via check? Is it direct deposit? Is it PayPal? Is it credit card, right? So be very specific so that there's little room for error when it comes to interpreting something. And you always want to look at your contract from the standpoint of a third party that doesn't know anything about your business, and ask yourself the question, would a third party reading this understand all of the essential points? Would there be any gaps or any areas that could be misinterpreted, right? So that's a good kind of final test to do on any contract that you put in place. So I hope that helps. When it comes to, there's a lot. Business contracts, this is a very deep bucket, but these are also the areas that you should consider in your business that you would likely want to have contracts in place, right? So if you operate a website, if you do one-on-one client work, if you're offering online courses or programs and it's through an online sales funnel, you definitely want to have terms of purchase in place. If you're doing in-person work, workshops, retreats, events, that requires a different kind of contract because that in-person work has different kinds of liability. Anytime you're dealing with on-location work, you want something that is specific to that. If you're working with JV partners or affiliates, promotional partners, right, there should definitely be contracts that cover that exchange. If you're disclosing ideas, if you're in the idea or business development phase and you're bringing potential ideas to potential JV partners, affiliates, anybody that you might enter into a business relationship with, but you haven't yet decided that, right? You should have non-disclosure agreements in place. If you're hiring support in your work, right? Even if it's temporary, like project-based work, you should probably have an agreement that covers that, both so that you protect yourself from tax liability, but also so that you are very clear on what the deliverables are, and there's way less likelihood for there to be a misunderstanding. If you're conducting or providing interviews through your work, you want to make sure that you address what does the interviewer or what do you get to do with the content, right? Do you get a copy? Do you get a recording? Can you use it for marketing purposes? Does the other person get to use it for future marketing purposes, however they want in their business? Like, be really clear in advance before you do this stuff, because people end up in fights all the time when their information gets used in a way that they did not anticipate, right? If you're speaking or presenting, right? Do you have the right to hire your own videographer? Do you have the right, or if it's a third-party platform, are they recording it for you? And do you get a copy of it? Do they get to use it for future marketing? How do you get to use it, right? Make sure that all of that's fleshed out in advance. Hiring brand ambassadors or paying for testimonials, right? You need to have certain disclosures and agreements in place for that kind of stuff. If you're working with, vendors in your business, depending on what you're up to, right, you should probably have very specific agreements covering your vendor work. So this is just a smattering of the various areas where you'd want to make sure, do I have something in place, right? But you can see business contracts is a big bucket. This is why I say it's kind of the nuts and bolts and all of the gears of like what you're actually doing in your business on a day-to-day basis. And these other buckets won't take as long, right? We're through kind of the meat and potatoes, but business insurance is one I get a lot of questions about. So for small businesses, understand that business insurance, there's 13 different kinds of small business insurance policies you can get, from, general liability to they bundle certain business policies together depending on what your business does. So this is where actually connecting with an insurance agent. Usually I recommend a broker so that they have access to a wide range of offerings on the market, right? And find out what is a fit for your business. And usually they walk you through a very specific questionnaire to learn about everything that you're up to in your business before they will quote you something based obviously on a risk rating. But business insurance, because it's unique to your business, that's why you want to connect with an insurance agent to go over the specifics. Business insurance protects against very specific kinds of risks, but it does not protect against all risks. So for example, flood insurance for your house just protects against floods, right? Certain business insurance policies are the same way. They may protect against certain things that are anticipated that you'll be doing in your business, but they will not necessarily protect against negligence or gross negligence if you do something silly. So that's where you also want to be really familiar with the language of your particular policy. And then finally, business provides that additional peace of mind, right? So that's why I say it's kind of like this additional layer of padding around the structure of your business. And it's very unique. So that's kind of the quick overview of business insurance. I'm not an insurance salesman. Insurance is appropriate for some people at the early phases of business, and for others, it may be something that, they add. It's usually, depending on what you're up to, it's usually fairly inexpensive. So I would say worth looking into and kind of holding out there as an option. But some people, if they don't yet have a lot of assets to protect with that insurance, like they don't opt to get it early in their journey until they're a little farther along. So it really just depends on your unique scenario. IP protection plan, right? So IP is intellectual property. IP protection plan, and an IP protection plan, it's one of the things that I help people put in place, is really an evaluation of what intellectual property do you have? Like, what do you already have created? What do you anticipate creating, right? So intellectual property, right? What is it? This refers to creations of the mind. This includes inventions, literary and artistic works, designs, symbols, names, and images used in commerce, right? So IP, you can protect with copyright registrations, you can protect with trademark registrations, right? If you're creating structures and systems and like really technical things, or actually like creating a device, then you might get a patent. But intellectual property, a lot of people don't understand. They think, oh, IP is something that, all the big boys have, IBM and Starbucks and Nike, right? But in the information world, which is what we all live in, like intellectual property is probably your largest business asset, right? So don't ignore it. Like it is the thing that is worth protecting in your business. So it's really worth understanding, what do you already have created? What will you be creating? And this includes things like your brand name and your tagline, signature product names or course names, right? Signature program names, the content on your website, right? That's your IP, the way that you write your particular language in a course or a program or a workbook. So understand also that that intellectual property, it's really interesting because people think like their idea is protected. Your idea is not actually the thing that's protected when you get any of these protections in place. It's the expression, your unique expression of that particular idea, right? So that is why it has to be in tangible form, meaning that once you express the piece of art or let's say you write something, right? It's not until it's expressed in intangible written form or created that you can obtain a registration to protect it. But even if you don't have a formal registration, I want to be very clear. For example, the second you create something, whether you create a workbook, write a page of copy for your website, like you own copyrights in that creation. You don't have to go register them to be the owner of them, to actually have them. They're inherent. Like as soon as you create it, you have them. Getting a registration gives you some additional strengths when it comes to, for example, prosecuting any infringement of that particular IP. So there are some big advantages to having registrations in place, but mostly an IP protection plan, like what I recommend people put in place is just a walkthrough of their current business, that what they have in place, what they're planning to create, and creating something of a roadmap so that they understand what IP is, at what points they might consider, for example, seeking a trademark registration if they are creating a signature course or creating a brand that they, would hate for anybody else to be able to, for example, use a similar name or the same name, right? There are very specific things you need to do for proper protection. And what this does, what an IP protection plan does, is you can see in the third bullet, helps you for the life of your business be a more strategic content creator. We are all publishers, right? We all create content either through our websites, through our courses, and working with our clients one-on-one, right? We're massive information publishers. And having an IP protection plan in place, having a roadmap for your business and what it might look like to protect what it is that you're creating from an intellectual property standpoint makes you a more strategic content creator and gives you competitive advantages, not only against your competition, but also against potential pitfalls that you can face. So for example, I had one client that went to obtain a trademark registration of their signature program, but years after it had become the signature program, right? They should have explored this really on in their journey. Turns out some random school in the middle of Arkansas already owns the name to this program in relationship to like educational services, which was the same category they wanted the trademark in, right? So don't do that. Don't put it off until years and years into your journey where suddenly you're like, oh, this became my signature program, and then find out that some school in the middle of nowhere already owns the name to it. That's kind of a bummer. So intellectual property examples, right? Business, brand name, tagline, phrase, right? Short phrases, website copy, workbook, worksheets, videos, images, music and lyrics, website design, systems, frameworks, right? Expressed concepts, books, ebooks, presentations, course, program content, signature product offerings, right? Understand what it is that you're creating and understand also what it takes to protect it. That's what an intellectual property plan can do for your business. And then finally, final bucket, woohoo, dispute resolution plan, right? So this, people don't understand until they're in it what a terrible thing litigation is. And again, not to, be overly like fear-mongery, because that's not my personality, but for 16 years, I've been practicing law, and that's been pretty much half transactional work, half litigation. And litigation is just such a bummer. It's an emotional and mental and financial drain on everybody. And so the whole thing about a dispute resolution plan, and I help people understand dispute resolution. I do a bunch of coaching on this topic, but especially in the context of business, we have so many opportunities for things to go wrong, so many moving parts, so many relationships, right? Usually involving some exchange of money. Learn what it takes to handle difficult conversations well. And there's a great book called Difficult Conversations. I recommend it to like anybody that I ever work with. It's written by the people that put on the program on negotiation at Harvard. I've been through their advanced negotiation seminar, spent a week out there. They're phenomenal. And their book, Difficult Conversations, will serve you so well in business and in life anytime you have a difficult conversation to address. And we all have those from time to time. So on the dispute resolution side, right, understanding how to resolve disputes and handle those conversations successfully, literally money in your pocket, right? Whether it's dealing with a client who is making a chargeback request or is getting ready to request a refund, right? What if you could turn that around, understand their complaint, understand the scenario, and you don't have to issue that refund? What if you, have somebody who's really disgruntled that maybe is considering like a small claims court action, right? What if instead you handle it well and save everybody time, and you're able to have like a real conversation right over the phone and get it resolved because you know how to take early and swift action that's the right kind of action. So literally it's money in your pocket if you can handle disputes and potential disputes well. It also, once you have a plan in place, right, it guides you on handling both internal and external disputes in your business, right? So if you're hiring employees, you've got support staff, again, there's massive opportunities for little things to go wrong and for misunderstandings to arise. And having a plan in place helps you seamlessly, especially if you've taught your employees or support staff, helps you handle all of that better. And then also is one more way, if you're systematizing other things in your business, right, and you've trained your support staff or your team on how to handle difficult conversations with clients or customers, etc., you create another opportunity to have more consistency across the face of your business in the way that you work with your clients and customers. So it's a huge, huge benefit. Oops, going the wrong direction, right? So all of this is to say that the legal component is part of your overall business strategy, and it really does. I mean, it sets you up for success, understanding where it fits. Like, there's just no way to be a modern online information business and not have to have actually a pretty, I'm not going to say significant, but a very strong basic legal understanding of what it takes to be in business. And so that's my goal, is to help people understand that. And legal protections are so much more than contracts, right? They bolster you from all sides. They provide a tremendous amount of internal support. They help you successfully set up your boundaries, right? They're just, they're mandatory if you're going to be successful in business. And then they also, right, once people understand what it takes to be in business the right way, moving forward, having the right legal support and legal information at your disposal informs your business, marketing, and sales strategies, right? You know how to stay out of trouble when it comes to the CAN spam law, or, you know, information marketing, or using testimonials the right way, or avoiding language on your website that would get you in trouble with the FTC, right? So it's just, it's so beneficial to get this stuff in place. It doesn't all have to be done at once, but it's, you know, obviously I'm a big proponent of understanding. And I tell people this, a little information, a little of the right information goes a long way. You don't have to be a full-blown attorney. You don't have to understand all of this, you know, top to bottom, but you do have to have a little bit of the right information so that it goes a long way in keeping you safe in your business. So I think that is the quick gist of it, the 5-bucket framework. Was that helpful? Do we have any additional questions, either regarding any of those buckets, how they all work together, anything else?
I don't see any additional questions right now. Eleni said that was awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Eleni, for watching. And I'm sure a lot of people watch this on the replay as well. So I can always direct them your way. So leading into, if someone is interested in working with you, Heather, what is the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Here, actually, I'll stay on this slide if you can still see it. Here I am. So you can find me online through my website, legalwebsitewarrior.com. I'm on Facebook. I'll be honest, I'm not great just based on the demands currently in my life, especially the little 11-month-old, right? I do not spend a lot of time right now online on social media, but the interesting thing is I am on LinkedIn more than I am on pretty much any other online platform. And LinkedIn, I actually have a whole LinkedIn training that I do because it's been such a great tool for me and my business. So you can always message me through LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook as well. You can also just jump on my website through my contact form or email me. And my email is just info@legalwebsitewarrior.com.
Perfect. And I'm super interested at what is the training with LinkedIn, because that's definitely an area I want to get more involved with. It's just, I haven't. Do you train entrepreneurs on how to, or what is that training?
Yeah, so I actually did just offer, it's inside, I posted one not too long ago, a video that I did of a training inside my Legal Website Warrior group. And I just walk people through the system that I developed for myself in my own business that works so well on LinkedIn. As far as connecting, it's kind of a 3-part system. The first part is really tailoring your search results, knowing who you're looking to connect with on LinkedIn. There's a way that you can run searches more successfully. The second is having your profile really optimized so that when somebody lands on your page, it's really client facing. Somebody spends 5 or 7 seconds and they know exactly what you're up to, right? You've got a banner in place that has all the right elements. And then I have a follow-up system for connecting with people. I search them, I send connection requests. Once they accept, then I have a little system that I follow that involves sending kind of a message that I've curated over time. I've tried a whole bunch of different ones and kind of measured results, and I have found one that works really well for me. And then, tailoring that, I try to spend time on people's profiles when I connect with them so that I can add a personal touch or really, know what people are up to in the world. And then I actually offer a very brief, connecting phone call to the ones that really seem like they're, serious about business. And it's been one of the most enjoyable ways, truthfully, to not only grow my own business, but just get new connections and new people that I can refer business to that do various things in the online business world. So I love it. Every time I run my system, I get invited onto podcasts and get speaking, invitations and this, get brought into existing groups of coaches and people that need legal information that don't otherwise have a lot of access to it. So it's I love LinkedIn. I have found that for my own business, that's where people are. They're not for me on Facebook or, and maybe it's just that I haven't spent enough time really figuring out Facebook and Instagram, but LinkedIn, I really enjoyed live connections and like live phone calls and really turning somebody who's an online connection into a real life connection. So that's actually why I love LinkedIn.
Oh, great. And so you said that is available in your Facebook group.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I'd be happy to share that with you.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome.
And we got some great feedback. And I know, like I said, the other people watch this on the replay. And
no worries.
Yeah, I'll be happy to send anyone that is, needs legal needs or help or guidance in their coaching business. I will send them your way.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you. And hopefully, with the 5-bucket framework, I just really want people to understand where the parts fit, right? Because then they can plan for step 1, right? Or at least schedule it. Like, I'll deal with business structure here, and then contracts, have an understanding of what's in that bucket. And again, I always tell people it doesn't all have to be done at once. Like, my suggestion is, like, especially from a contractual perspective, protect your money maker. Whatever you're doing right now to make money in your business, right? Protect that first. Start there. People can, even with the 5-bucket framework of breaking it down, I think people can still feel a little overwhelmed, and that's not the goal. The goal is to understand the framework, understand how the pieces fit, and then kind of approach a plan of getting those in place, as appropriate for your own business and your own business schedule and budget. So hopefully that's helpful for people that have seen this and that may see it again in the future. But obviously, if they have any follow-up questions, they're welcome to get in touch. They can email me directly or whatever is easiest.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Krista. Good to see you. We've done so much talking over the phone.
All right. Well, have a good rest of your day in Seattle.
You too. Yeah, not in Seattle. Where did you say you are? Florida? Back in
Clearwater, Florida. Yeah.
Nice. Well, enjoy all that sun.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.